Hey, wonderful woman, and welcome to the house, the place where we stop pretending everything is fine and start doing the real work. I'm Charlotte Pridmore, and I help successful women break through identity ceilings disguised as problems. So, if you're tired of surface level personal development, if you are done with toxic positivity, if you are ready for transformation that absolutely lasts, then you are in the right place. This week, we are talking about the capable woman. So, over the last decade of doing this work, I see a lot of similarities in the women that I work with. And everything I do is about identity architecture. So, that is architecting the identity, the version of you that is required to meet this next stage of your life, whether that's a goal, a dream, something you're going after, writing a book, whatever it is. And what happens is that when we're born naked and loving it, we assume an identity based on what was modeled to us as kids, our experiences, the way we saw the world, and it produces this version of us. And sometimes what happens, a lot of the time, what happens is that we reach a point in our life where maybe we want to achieve something, or maybe a desire is born, and suddenly the identity, who we are, doesn't match, or it doesn't is in alignment with that. And what most people do is they go, oh, it's just not me. I won't be able to do that. What I'm about is about meeting you at that moment and saying, okay, if this version of you isn't capable of achieving this, then how about we architect a version that is? And that means identifying our shadow patterns, identifying those shadows, identities, and being able to let them go in order to replace them with something new. So what a lot of people do is they talk about the next version of themselves, that identity. But what they fail to do is really identify where they are right now and who they're being right now. So I have quite an extensive list of identities that I see very, show up often. So the one we're talking about today is the capable woman. So, and this is all women, right? So you're the capable woman if you are the one that gets shit done, that people rely on, that holds everything together, that never drops the ball. Identify with that? If you do, here's what people aren't telling you, is that the identity that created the capable woman is also the one that's keeping you overworked, undercharging, and exhausted. So, what's your origin story? Your origin story is basically that in childhood, you were the capable one. You were maybe the peacekeeper. You were the one that was the mini adult. Maybe you had to parent your parent in some way. You were the one that, yeah, held everything together and was sensible and relied upon. A little bit too much, probably. And the belief that that installed was, I have to do everything myself. If it's going to be done right, I might as well do it. And you might have heard that. So if you're a woman who identifies with this, your mum might have been a capable woman, and therefore you modeled what she was like. So sentences like, if you want something doing, I better do it myself, which is something that I heard quite a lot. That narrative plays out to, I can't rely on anybody else. I have to do everything, which obviously creates pressure. What it also means is that you take your value from being needed. And how this served you and how this worked for you is that it kept you safe, it got you approval, and it kept you in control. And if you think about if you grew up in a particularly chaotic household, or one that had quite a lot of conflict, and you were the one that sort of like kept everything together, then that element of control meant safety. And so now it means that, what it's costing you is, it means you don't really ask for help, you can't receive, you can't delegate, and you can't rest. So if you're that woman who can absolutely handle everything, but you're secretly resenting the fact that nobody's asking if you're okay, it means you've trained everybody to believe that you don't need them. And now you're drowning and you can't admit it. But let me just take you through the shadow side of being capable. Is that being capable becomes proving you're capable. And so you can't stop working because without work, like, who are you? It also you create impossible standards, like ridiculously high expectations of yourself. So you've always got something to prove. This proving energy in your nervous system becomes your default. It becomes the thing that feels safe to you. And so in order to move throughout your day and feel the thing that you want to feel, which is safety, you create situations, experiences that constantly mean you have to prove yourself, which is exhausting, right? You also subconsciously make yourself indispensable to those around you so you feel valuable. Because to be valued is to be needed. And so you're constantly, you say yes to everything because I can handle it. Um, and that's your identity. Your identity is I can handle it. And so you don't charge what you're worth because, you're so capable, it should be easy for you. And you equate charging with time. Well, because I'm so capable, it'll only take me an hour. So I'll just charge this for an hour because it'll only take me an hour because I'm so capable. You're not saying this out loud, but this is what your unconscious is saying to you. But you don't charge for your wisdom. You don't charge for your capability. You're just charging for your time. And it's almost like you undervalue that because it's all about how quickly can I get this done? Can I show you how capable I am through how little time it's going to take me and how little effort it's going to take me? The way this can show up in business as well as in life, and I see this with a lot of mums, I mean, I am a mum, is that you look at your calendar and it's jam packed. And part of you is super proud and super like, yay, about how much you can handle. But there's another part of you that wants to burn it all down and run away. But you can't do that because everyone relies on you and you've built an entire identity around being needed. And in your business, it means that you can't scale because you can't let go of control. It means that you're undercharging, like I just said, because it doesn't take me that long. So you devalue your expertise because you're just associating to output and time. You attract people, clients, customers that need you, not people that are ready to do the work. Because to not need you makes you feel insecure. Well, if I'm not needed, I'm not valuable. And so this shows up in constantly, attracting people, customers, and clients that need you, which feels very validating to you, but it actually makes you more exhausted. And you actually don't get to experience the other side of that, which is when you work with people who are aligned and ready to do the work and however whatever capacity your business it shows up in. You don't get to experience how much easier and more flowy and how much more beautiful that is to work with people who are willing to do the work and willing to show up and do their thing and their part. And you're exhausted not because you work too much, but because your worth is attached to output. And so you're constantly just on this go, 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 go. And then also what you do is you create scenarios where you have to prove your capability repeatedly. And the last way it can show up is someone compliments you or your work, and you say immediately, oh, it was nothing. Oh, it only took me an hour. You instantly downplay. So you don't receive well, you don't receive compliments, you don't receive help, you don't receive any form of support well, because to lose control, to not be doing it would be to be devaluing yourself. And I want to give you an example from somebody that I worked with. So somebody that I worked with, she was somebody who came to me because she wanted to add, you know, a, quite a considerable amount of more clients to her business. And she was already working, most evenings. And during the day, she had time, and she was just, I want to fill this time. And so the conversation started around social media and what she could do in order to bring more people into her business. And the question I asked was, do you really want that? Because there is something stopping you from taking the action, doing, showing up on social media, doing the thing. There is something stopping you. What is it? Because the main things that I work with are visibility, impact, and income. So, yes, there was a fear of visibility for sure. And that was something we were working through. It wasn't really about the money because actually she was completely fine financially and felt more than fine. Um, and so when I asked that question, it was like, do you actually want this? And what it came down to was that she wanted to keep busy to keep her mind occupied, because this was definitely her identity. This identity was the capable one. She was very much had to parent her parent. And so she was always the one that was relied on. She was always the one that had to hold everything together. And so slowing down and actually just having the day to go and have lunch or go do some Pilates or whatever she could do felt unsafe to her because she wasn't being valuable, or she wasn't doing, she wasn't outputting. She wasn't constantly doing. And I said, is that really how you want to live the rest of your life, working every hour that God sends just to keep your negative mind at bay? Because to her, activity, work meant that she wasn't in her own head. And so obviously that's not the way to move forward. It's not sustainable. So, what happens on the other side, and what's possible when you work on this identity and shift it from I prove my worth through capability to my worth is independent of my output? My worth is wonderful and exactly present and exactly what it needs to be without anything related to what I do. So, imagine being valuable for just being instead of doing. Imagine charging for your expertise, not just your time. Imagine receiving help without guilt. Imagine asking for help, asking for support. Imagine being surrounded by people who are genius and brilliant at the things that they do instead of you trying to be brilliant at everything at all times. Because, no matter how capable you are, you're not that brilliant at every single thing that you have to do in your life. You got to a standard that's enough for you to be able to do it. Imagine your business supporting you instead of propping you up, instead of being the thing that you use to escape from that constant need to output and need to implement and need to work. So when we look at this identity of the capable woman, there is so many things it does to serve you. You are capable, very capable, and you've learned to be that way. But with every identity, we have to look at when it starts not serving us. And one of the things that came out of that conversation with the client was she's like, I'm just so tired. And it wasn't tired from the work, it was tired from the running from herself. It was tired from constantly having to be that person, to hold that identity, to not let the cracks show. And she said, and I know a lot of you will identify with this, is that sometimes it gets so much that she just has to have a massive cry, or there'll be a meltdown, or there'll be some kind of thing that turns up and that causes that emotion to come. And one of the other things that we discussed was is that when she was younger, emotion wasn't that particularly safe. It wasn't safe to say I need help. It wasn't safe because it was just like just get on with it, you know? So when we look at, and if you're resonating with this, right, you are not alone. You are not alone. You are just one of the many women who have constructed this identity in order to survive, in order to take care, in order to feel valued, in order to feel like they belong. So essentially, there's nothing bloody wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You've just been living from an identity that has got to, that has served you up until this point. But if you're listening to this, or if you're in personal development, or you're searching for something to fix something that you feel doesn't feel right, and it's not that. You have absolutely the capacity and the capability to shift your identity. How awesome that you plow your energy into that rather than just more output. And that's basically what the house is all about. So I call it the house because that's the way I always described it, because what it is the place where you get to drop the version of yourself that you've been using and create the real one. And that real one is aligned with the things that you love, aligned with your passions, aligned with the things that you know you're capable of, but the current identity wasn't allowing you to be. So with the capable woman, that could look like rest. It could look like I'd love to just take Fridays off and go and have lunch with my friends, or go and have lunch with my partner, or I'd like to just take a weekend. I'd love to just be able to rest without feeling guilty. Because when a capable woman rests, it feels unsafe because you're not being productive. There's no output happening. And when your value is attached to your output, rest becomes very, very difficult. And the nervous system just doesn't feel safe with it. And so it's agitated. It wants to go do something, create more work, create more situations, take on more tasks, because that's normal to your body. So if this has landed, and if you're curious what transformation looks like in there, that I invite you in to come and look at the house. I invite warmly, because it really is the place where you get to just de-arm drop the armor, and discover what it looks like to be a newer version that gets to be who you want to be right now. Because the women that walk through the house, they learn to separate their worth from their work. They learn to receive. They learn to lead themselves. They learn to rest. And they get to charge for their expertise instead of their time. This is where you just, yeah, I mean, I would see it as that you're walking through, imagining dropping the armor, dropping the identity, and leaving only the things that serve you and picking up new things to be embodied. It's a beautiful thing. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If it's landed, love to hear your feedback. You can either drop a comment below, you can DM me or send me a message privately if you want to. And the details to book a call or to look at more information about the house will be below.